Okay, let me explain what we're going to do tonight. We're going to transition into a section right now that they are going to share some of their personal story with you. And the focus we're going to have tonight is on growing up and living in an urban culture. Now, many of you, that's your culture you grew up in, the one you live in now. We're putting this on YouTube to send to the churches that are coming in from the small towns and rural areas around Virginia, because for them, urban culture, the city, etc., is not something that they're used to. That's not where they live. They live in small towns, they live in rural areas with great big huge expanses of land and livestock and all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be a little bit different for them. So what you hear tonight is going to sound like, hey, it's no big deal to me because that's what I live in every day. But remember, this is not just for us, it's for folks who live in other parts of the state. Okay, I'm going to ask you questions, and I need you, because of time constraints, to not go real long, okay? Just give a short glimpse on this that I ask you on these questions. Okay, first of all, I need you to tell us about the neighborhood you grew up in. We'll start with Tramell and go back.
I grew up in Bainbridge Commons. It's about that way by Domino's. Yeah, so that's it.
Right now, I grew up in Diggstown, which is off of Campstone Road.
I grew up in South Jersey, neighborhood, Millville, New Jersey, Emily Heights Apartments.
Now, we get a little bit more power on this one. Okay, I need you to give us, in about a paragraph or so, just a capsule of what it was like growing up. Your neighborhood, if there was poverty there, if there was crime, closeness of the folks, just a whole bit of what your community was like and what growing up was like for you.
My neighborhood I grew up in, it was crime. It was a lot of fun for the kids because we didn't pay attention to a lot of things that were going on. Didn't know we were poor most of the time, and we easy to make friends. We always played different games, and life was rough. But we adapted.
In my neighborhood that I grew up in, we didn't know we were poor. We played kickball, women cooked dinner, everybody did the same thing over and over and over again. So it was just normal to us.
I think for me, growing up, I never had a chance to dream as a kid. They don't teach kids in these neighborhoods that we're going into to dream further than where they live. And so I grew up, most of you know, with an alcoholic grandmother, having to feed myself and having to do a lot of things on my own.
And Tramell, your neighborhood is literally about 2 blocks from where this church is located, okay? And your neighborhood you grew up in is about half a mile from where the church is located. Of course, you were in Jersey. Describe an urban neighborhood, and again, this is going to be germane to the one that you grew up in, you've done, or you live in right now, but describe an urban neighborhood to someone who's coming in from either a suburban community or a rural community that doesn't really have any feel for what an urban neighborhood is really like.
For me, an urban neighborhood, it was, like I said, it was a rough place. But I didn't really know it was a rough place because I was part of it. And to other people on the outside, they just thought it was a bad place to go. And I was like, no, my neighborhood's not bad. Come on out there with me. And when they came to my neighborhood, nobody would bother them. But if they would come to my neighborhood alone, then it would be a totally different thing. If you didn't know anybody, you could go in that neighborhood and just walk around. So to me, that's when it opened my eyes. It was in high school when it happened. Because God was saying, man, you live in a rough neighborhood. I said, no, my neighborhood's friendly. So I didn't realize until high school that my neighborhood wasn't a really friendly high school. It wasn't a friendly neighborhood, but when you're there, you don't realize that.
or you had 7, 8 sisters and brothers, you wore the same clothes and just switched out the different tops. That was just how it was. And when you get to school and they would joke you about holes in your clothes, that would make you feel bad. But that was how things was. You would only get new shoes once a year, or new, maybe. And when you got toys, everybody else got, you saw on TV or you saw other things with new toys, and you got toys from second-hand stores, thrift stores. That was called that a great day. And I can remember when it was 9 of us had one bike and we had to take a turn. Even though it took me all day to get a ride, that was all fun.
For me, what I saw a lot of is I saw drug dealers hanging out next to the mailbox. That was like their favorite location, and they still do that. And when they see people they don't know, they scatter because they don't know if it's cops or not. Another thing that I was used to a lot was gunshots. When I first moved to Virginia Beach, I think it was the first night I was there, I said, this is really weird. And they said, why? I said, because I haven't heard any gunshots yet. I didn't know that you could live somewhere and not hear gunshots, because that's all I heard.
You all have touched on 2 things in what you shared. One is poverty, and the other is fear. Let's talk about poverty. Can you describe potentially shame that's associated with poverty, and how you see people, and how maybe yourself growing up trying to cover for that sense of shame? I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have the other.
Well, I didn't really feel ashamed or anything. I knew other people who did. You know, they didn't have something, but if I didn't have something, I just figured it just wasn't something I was supposed to have. And for poor people, we had plenty of things. And my mom made ways to get stuff, so I didn't wonder on how we got it. So it was just, I didn't care about having everything that everybody else had. I wasn't one of those people who had to have the latest and the greatest. If I liked something, it was fine for me. So I didn't really feel ashamed.
I had a many shameful days going to school because all the girls dressed better than me. They had better clothes than me. And I remember one girl had a pretty pair of yellow shoes, and I wanted them so bad that I went home and my brother had some yellow paint, and I painted my black shoes yellow. And when I got to school, the yellow started coming off, and they were laughing at me. So that was a real hurtful thing.
I want you all to think about this. Your paycheck is 100% of a paycheck. 90% of your paycheck is spent on alcohol. My grandmother would do that. She would get paychecks to take care of me, and 90% of that will go toward her alcohol, and 10% will go toward food and everything else. So I grew up wearing stuff that didn't fit right on me. I grew up not having food to eat because she wanted to do her thing. And sometimes we grew up with no heat in the house because she didn't pay the heating bill. So just think about that. 98% of a paycheck used for alcohol. 10% of a paycheck used for food.
You all are describing some, needless to say, real life experiences that you grew up in. Thinking broader, in addition to what you've experienced and what you see the folks experiencing in the communities that you live or work in that are in the urban context. Ernie, I know you're going to be, you work in Hunters Point, which is one of our shrimp sites. And Ms. Rose, you live in Diggstown, which is one of our shrimp sites. And Tramell has grown up in a community that's close to our church, and grown up in a community also moved later just a few blocks over to the Forest Cove area where will be one of our shrimp sites. If you could describe for someone coming in from outside of Hampton Roads and maybe from outside of an urban culture, what do they need to be and to say in order to connect maybe with a culture that's very different from the one that they're used to? How would they connect with folks that would be in the neighborhoods where you live or you work?
The first thing I would say to connect with them is not to try to not try to overstate where you're coming from. Don't come with lines like some of my best friends are black. Don't say things like that. I mean, just kind of treat them like people, the way you want to be treated. I mean, don't make it about clothes, don't make it about phones, don't make it about anything else, but just share God with them. And if you come with the right heart, then they'll receive you.
When you come into the community, make sure that you reach out to a child and hug them. They need more hugs than anything because that's what they're lacking. The parents are not there, so that's why they reach out for these games, because the game tells them they love them, but they're using them. And when they can really associate God with love, then you might make a change.
I spoke on this a few minutes ago. One of the things that, I really want us to focus on is to show these kids that they can dream outside their neighborhood. Because that's all they know is that neighborhood. Some of them come here, but show them that they can go to college if they want to. They can get a job if they want to. It's all about showing them that they can dream. I had no one tell me that I could do the stuff that I'm doing now. And so every time I accomplish something, it almost makes me want to cry. When I first got my driver's license at 20, I almost cried outside the DMV because I accomplished something that no one never told me that I could do. So our focus, along with God, is to just show these kids that they can do greater things than what they're doing now.
Next question, what would you identify as the most important aspect of the message and ministry of Jesus that needs to be communicated in the communities where we'll be ministering?
I would say the most important thing about the message of Jesus Christ is that it's for all people. It's not just for the rich, it's not just for somebody who doing well, it's for everybody. It's for somebody who doesn't have shoes to wear. It's for somebody who don't know where the next meal is coming from. It's for anybody who chooses to give their life to Jesus. And that's what was so appealing to me. When I got saved, it was that God accepted me and He knew everything about me. And I mean, I wasn't a nice guy when I got saved. And God knew everything about me and He accepted me just like I was.
To let them know that even though they're going through, because they're hurting, they're in pain, and they feel like nobody's there, to let them know that God is there, and that He do love them, even though they can't see it. Just keep believing that He's there and know that He's there, and He got His angels camped around them. But when you in that type of community, and everybody's hating on you, and somebody don't like you, and they want to fight you all the time, and put guns on you, you don't feel like you have no hope. But if you just let them know that God sees all, He knows all, and He's going to take care of anything that goes wrong there. But He's going to do it. It's going to be in His time, but He's going to take care of it.
I'm just going to touch a little bit on what you said because that was so good. Just show the kids that there's a way out, that where God has placed them right now is not the last of it. That God has greater and bigger things for them to do. through his death on the cross and his resurrection.
We've talked, and you all have shared somewhat about a lot of the negative aspects of urban culture, but there's a lot of positive. And starting with Ramel, if you all could share with us some of the positive aspects of urban culture.
Let's see. Positive urban culture.
You got me.
It gives me a chance, the positive part of it, it gives me a chance to minister to that young lady right there. It gives me a chance to know exactly where she's coming from. Because it's easy for her to talk to Mary, and Mary not know a thing about what's going on. Because Mary didn't grow up that way. But it's easy, the positive part is for her to come and say, hey, Tramel, I'm struggling with this. And for me to say, I've been to the exact same thing, here's how you get out. So, just the fact that, I was able to live and learn, and I can use that on someone else.
I had to laugh because today was not a good day to ask that question to me. The positive is, maybe you should.
Well, the positive for me, I can say the positive thing about that was people are very friendly in those neighborhoods. I mean, I lived in a few apartments, and kids just come to your door. When you go outside, kids welcome you and play with you. I mean, that's how it was when I was growing up. We played all types of games. I mean, we played sandlot football. We played football in the parking lot. I learned to build bikes. Just growing up in the hood, didn't have the money to afford them, so I learned how to put bikes together very well. Learned how to play a lot of different games, spring tag, kick the can we used to play. I mean, we didn't have to have a whole lot of money to play the games, and we got along well. I mean, and you also dream about living differently. I mean, we would have dreams of doing more, of being more. You see things on TV and you would strive to do that, and that's a positive thing for me. And actually, now I'm able to share my life with the children who I've been ministering to since 1994 through different centers and stuff. I mean, I'm able to share with children, and I can share them and tell them that they can be more than what they ever thought they could be, because just like I'm giving back to them, what I'm giving to them, they can give to somebody else in the future. And now I can tell them that they can go to college because I went to college. I've done it, and I never thought I was going to go to college. So I'm telling them about things that I've achieved and that I still want to achieve. So that's the positive thing for me.
Yeah. Okay, the positive for me is when because I give so much of my heart and all my soul to my community. And when I look around and I see a child want, Miss Rose, can I get the bus to church with you? And want to ride to church with me, and I see them give their life to God, and I see them want to be baptized. I see them graduate from school or come through their grades. That is the most positive part to me, is when I know that I did something to help them along the way, and I don't want to step away from that. And that's positive.
In some of the young people that we'll work with that week, we may encounter some levels of anger. And that can be scary and intimidating. Why would we potentially encounter anger? In other words, what's going on potentially in these kids' lives that would cause them to be angry? And then how can we help alleviate some of that anger?
Well, firstly, they want to know that you really care about them. they're so used to seeing people come and go in their lives, and what I found out is they just want to know that you're real, that you really care about them. They want to know that you're not just there to do a job, or that you're not just there to say, I checked something off my list, but you're there because you care about them sincerely. That's all they want to do. They want somebody to care about them sincerely.
Yes, I agree with you there. When those kids look around and see that when they do get angry, they are angry because their parents are not there in their life. There's nobody positive there for them. The parents are out doing their thing, drinking, doing drugs, whatever, and they're not there for them. So they got that anger in them. But if you can just talk them through it and say, hey, I'm here today, and I'm gonna be here tomorrow, and they look around and see you the next day, hey, I can see you in church the next following week, come on, catch the bus, and I'm gonna be there for you, call you my number. Those things is what changed their lives.
I think they're angry because they don't have positive people in their life. All they deal with for the entire year, besides July when we come, is negative people. Family, drug dealers, whatever it is, all they deal with is negativity. And so when we come there, we show not only the light of God to them, but we show a light of positive love and attention. So that's why they're angry, because they don't have any good, godly people like us until we get there and show them that we're better than the people. Not better, but we represent a higher calling that they can cling on to, if that makes sense.
Well, you just touched on something that I want to expand on, and that is the question may understandably be asked, particularly about folks that are coming in from outside to be with us for that week of SHRMP. What difference can they make in just 1 week in the communities? And if you could share whatever your perspective would be of the difference you can make in that week.
The difference in 1 week is just you being there and you showing that you really care about them. 1 week could give you hope for the rest of your life. When I was a kid, a young teen, they had a program back in Jersey where I'm from, and it was JTPA. It was just young adults and older teens, and they just came out to the neighborhood where we lived, and they just spent time with us. They played games with us. They taught us how to play croquet. They played horseshoes with us, and they just loved on us, and that made the difference. And made me want to do what I do today, working with kids and giving back.
To you all, it might just seem like 1 week, but to them, that's until the next year. And like last year when you all stepped on the ground to dig down and came out, those kids are looking for you all to come back again. So you all did make a difference.
The difference that we need to show them is to not live in fear anymore, because that's what a lot of them are living in, is fear. We need to show them that when you walk with Christ, fear is impossible to have, because He is guiding our steps every single day. And so I think that's what we need to show them, is to not fear, to be in their own neighborhood.
I want to sort of give a little introduction to each one of these folks and some background on them. They're all 3 members of our church, very active here at South Norfolk. Ernie Denby heads up our bus ministry here at South Norfolk. He also works in Hunters Point, which is one of our communities for SHRMP, and he works with children in that community literally 5 days a week in a tutoring program. He'll also be leading one of the camping programs all summer long in that community, where also a group of our interns will be serving. Rose Arrington lives in Diggstown, and she's the tenant manager president there. She leads the residents in that community and is someone who represents Diggstown to the folks both in that community as well as outside. She also serves as one of the commissioners in Norfolk Redevelopment Housing Authority, which means that she interrelates to all of the public housing in the city of Norfolk, which literally touches thousands upon thousands of lives. And Tremel Ferguson. Tremel is one of our college students. Tremel grew up in the youth ministries and young adult ministries here at South Norfolk. He is a student currently at Liberty University and studying for the ministry. Thank you all for sharing with us. Building off of what they shared with you all, years ago I was leading a team over at Park Place, and I had a mother come up to me on Friday night over there as we were wrapping everything up. And at that time, we were working at a Park Place Baptist Church, and there was a great big apartment complex across the street from the church that in those days was just, I mean, it was a rough place. And the kids had come pouring out of that apartment building every night and coming over to Bible school. And I remember this mom walked up to me with her son, and she said to me, the kids in this neighborhood don't have much to laugh about. And this week, this neighborhood has been filled with laughter. Thank you for coming. And that is a big part of the reason we do SHRMP, to just create laughter in the name of Jesus in these communities. All right, I need worship team to come up here. We're going to